accomplished Dr. Bhaswati Bhattacharya. She is living between Manhattan and Kasi. Dr. Bhaswati Bhattacharya is a licensed board certified physician integrating good medicine with Ayurveda for the past 15 years. She is a clinical assistant professor of family medicine at Weill Cornell Medical College, New York, and a PhD researcher in Ayurveda at Banaras Hindu University. She is a 2014 Senior Fulbright Nehru Scholar, recipient of the American Medical Association's Leadership Award, and the first Indian to speak at commencement exercises at Harvard University. I read her book during lockdown period. The book is Everyday Ayurveda. In the year 2020, I read this book. This book, which I also have on my Audible, which used to be my go-to resource whenever I wanted to understand something about Ayurveda or a source of inspiration. This book has been my constant source of inspiration. And from that time, I wanted to do this podcast with Dr. Bhattacharya to explore how ancient Ayurvedic principles like Dinacharya, Ritucharya, and Panchakarma. Maybe Dinacharya is a daily routine one has to practice, and Ritucharya is a seasonal regimen, and also the art of simple living. How these things can help prevent diseases and promote a holistic well-being through the wisdom shared by Dr. Bhattacharya in Everyday Ayurveda. We aim to bring actionable insights and timeless knowledge to our audience, empowering them to live healthier, more balanced lives. Dr. Bhattacharya, I welcome you with a wholehearted intent to grab as much as knowledge you have and share it with our audience today. I'm really feeling excited and happy and fortunate for having you as my guest. And before we get into the depths of this podcast, can you share a little bit about what prompted you to learn about Ayurveda, yoga, homeopathy, and how all this learning helped you in holistic understanding of the medical sciences, treating patient and your teachings? Because you are a trained allopathic practitioner and a professor at a medical college in New York. Over to you, Dr. Bhattacharya.
Thank you, Dr. Roy. And thank you for having me. Your introduction of me was about 10 years old. I'm no longer at Banaras Hindu University, though I do have a house in Banaras. I am now in Manhattan again at Weill Cornell, and also doing a lot of other work and projects, mostly as a consultant, but working to bring Ayurveda into the mainstream using evidence. So that continues in my life. I started with Ayurveda I learned about it before medical school, and I had met Deepak Chopra and the Maharishi, Mahesh Yogi, and several people who are icons of Ayurveda. But, I'm a Bengali, and 100 years ago, some of the best Ayurveda in the world was kept in Bengal. The British systematically killed many of the Vaidyas in the 1920s and 30s, forcing them to make the choice between Calcutta Medical College and be an allopathic doctor, or if they wanted to stay in Ayurveda purely, they were shot dead. And I met with a Dr. Gupta, who was 90 years old when I met him, and he told me the story because he was he was a younger person at the time, and he knew of this. He knew of this from his, direct contact, just like I know about many stories of Bengal and the Bengal famines from my own mother and father. It's not so many generations ago. So we knew Bengal had a lot of wisdom of Ayurveda, and my mother was using a lot of these things in daily practice, but she didn't give me the scientific reason. She just said, ita korte hoy. This is what should be. And when I would say, but Mama, the scientific logic, she would say, I can't give you the yukti. We say jukti in Bangla. But I can tell you that this is what my grandmother did. This is what her grandmother did. And so when I do it, I know that I feel well. And I think it makes sense to do it. So you can't always have logic from a scientific report. Sometimes the logic is just what you do and feel and experience. So, my father was a scientist, so I would say, but Ma, we need the science. Why do you do this? And she would say, do it and experience it. If you have good bhat, cooked rice with ghee in it, see how you feel. You feel full without feeling overfull, and you don't feel full, feel sick afterwards, like some foods will make you, especially, the fast foods. You fill yourself and you feel sick. You don't feel that with rice, just feel it. So there's the proof. Okay, so that's how I grew up. And then soon after medical school, I was asked to do a film on Ayurveda for National Geographic, and it focused on Ayurveda. And so I went, and we had a wonderful film crew, and I was the protagonist in that film as a doctor traveling through India, as an allopathic doctor discovering Ayurveda. So that's, it was true to form. That's what I did. But when I was there filming, I saw patients recovering from things that were never seen in my very, very good education in the West, in some of the top schools in the West. It was just considered that these conditions were incurable, terminal, permanent, and just impossible to treat. And I saw them being treated. Things like people having strokes, very severe strokes, and being told they'll be paralyzed for life. But then with Panchakarma, they were recovering. There was what we now call neuroplasticity, because modern science has started learning a lot more and said that now they say a lot of things that they said 50 years ago or 30 years ago as impossible, as absolutely, possible now, because they have words for it, they accept it. When Ayurveda had experience of it, it was considered to be quackery or impossible. So when I saw this at this time, this is some 20 years ago, I came back and talked to my doctor friend, allopathic doctor friends here and also in Kolkata. And in Kolkata, they said, these people are just quacks. But there were a few who were MBBS doctors whose parents or grandparents were Ayurvedic and said, yeah, we know that there's a history of it, but we don't have the ability to accept it because my license as an allopathic doctor requires me to not accept those things. I can't be sure about those things. People take ghee, but I can't be sure that ghee works. If you want to put ghee in rice, it'll make you fat. That's what our studies show. They don't have the evidence because a lot of studies from allopathy are based on their ignorance. You have to know to use, for example, cultured ghee and not the ghee from buffalo or the ghee that's made from the malai and just made into butter. You have to make the milk into dahi, yogurt, and then make that transformation from the bacteria changes milk so that the makhan that's made from that, the butter, becomes a different kind of ghee, and that is medicinal. Same with rice. If you have local rice grown in your own area, and the air that you breathe is the air that rice breathes, and the water you drink, same water that the rice drinks when it's growing, that is good for you. But if you import rice from China or like Tilda or one of the brands that is polished rice, you're not going to get the benefits of the dhan, which is why the dhanya, the richness of the grain. And so these kind of lessons were things I was seeing when I was doing the film. And I came back and I asked the doctors, and they were very skeptical. But my mind was open because I know what I had seen. I know what I had witnessed. And I started looking into it. And it turns out that film was life-changing for me because there were many people that watched it. It was sold to the Discovery Channel, so it was showing all around the world on television at the time. Now you can, get it on your computer. But when people were watching it, one person who watched it had a friend who knew me. And she called me and said, I want you to talk with one of my friends. And when I talked with him, I felt like I knew him, but I had never met him in this time. And he invited me to India to see his hospital. And when I went there and saw more of what I had seen when I was making the film, he had a Kundalini done. My Kundali means my Vedic
Astrology.
placement. Yeah, well, when you say astrology, it's the effect of the stars on the body, but it's more about your place in the universe and the forces of the universe on you, the planets, the stars, the moon. And it said that in that time I was going to find a guru, and I laughed. I said, I don't need a guru, I'm a medical doctor. It turns out that that man had the exact same complement of chart, and he became my guru. And I started learning from him and his hospital and his immense faculty of really great practitioners. And so I went into what's called Guru Shishya Parampara, and that lineage taught me Ayurveda in a way that is the classical way of learning Ayurveda. Going to these medical colleges now where everything is set up like a British classroom is not the way to learn Ayurveda. So I was learning it. And as I learned it, I started incorporating it into my practice, little things at a time. For example, lifestyle, Dinacharya. And I saw a big effect on my patients here in New York. I was at the hospital full time. And I said, wow, how is it possible that just getting people to do some of the things we're going to talk about, how is it possible? It has such huge effect on their health. And that's what really started my journey. And then I moved from the Dinacharya and Ritucharya, which I had to learn myself, right? Ritucharya is not well taught in India. That's why the Ayurvedic doctors don't practice it so well. Some do because they have really taken time to understand it. And then I moved into some of the herbs, and I learned them in clusters of, they're called Gana, the families. And I started using them, and I started seeing immense changes. In that time period, menopausal hot flashes was a very, very big medical problem in the US. And so was pain. And so I started learning about these. And then the journey continued. So I've been with that Gurukul for, a few decades now. And I've been learning and I've been integrating because in the US, I'm still a medical doctor, but I find that now that the community is growing and there's a huge curiosity in the US and in the Western countries to learn more about natural living and organic living and the philosophy. It's not a religion, but it's a philosophy that, it's like if you live in Kolkata and you have a preference for pure cotton, right? So there's a whole elite group of us that will not wear any poly cotton mix or Kerala cotton or any others. We only go to places like Kanishka and the pure cotton saris, and we have we really value pure cotton because in Kolkata it's so humid and hot that we know the value of that. So that's our choice. Is that a religion? Will I say that I'm in a cotton sari religion? No, it's my choice. Ayurveda is also a choice. It's a choice for how you want to live your life, your choice of lifestyle, your choice of really everything. What you sleep on, how you sleep, when you sleep, how you eat, when you eat, who you eat with. And that lifestyle choice that is guided by Dinacharya helps so many people that they continue doing it, because if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it, right? And that is the proof it works.
Yeah, that's really wonderful, Dr. Bhattacharya, and that says a lot. Actually, there are so many things. As I was going through Charaka Samhita, one specific Sutrasthana 9.4, Samadoshaha, Samadnischa, Samadhatu, Malakriyaha, Prasannatmendriya Manaha, Swastya Ityabhidhiyate. This is the verse that actually says health is defined as the balance of vata, pitta, kapha, and also agni and proper functioning of the tissues and waste, along with the joyful state of the mind, senses, and soul. So that is basically, maybe I can say, if one do as you mentioned, Dinacharya or the daily routine, and Ritucharya is a seasonal regimen that helps in maintaining the proper functioning of the body, preventing one from diseases, and also Samadhati Sama Agni. That means Vata, Pitta, Kapha doshas are in balance, then one can prevent. It is a great preventive way of looking at diseases. So what are your thoughts? And can you share some proper scientific basis of Dinacharya and then Ritucharya?
So this is a wonderful shloka. It actually comes from Shushruta Samhita, not Charaka Samhita, and it's very famous shloka that he had proposed. It was the last shloka of a chapter where he said, "After all, remember that this is what real health is," and that shloka from Shushruta points to the fact that it's not just about how you think you feel. It's really what all your tissues inside your microcosm is as key as your macrocosm or your thinking mind. So I think that these principles are a very, very strong cornerstone of the fact that we're not just looking for disease management, and we're not looking for artificial things like, if you look good, then you are good. If your skin is bad, it's not that it's just about your skin, it's about your gut, right? If you have lines under your eyes, it's about your liver. It's not just, it's like your organ on the inside. It's not just about your outside or your, it's just what do they call them? Dark lines or dark circles. There's a real correlation of everything inside with outside. Can you repeat your question about what you want me to say about prevention?
If one practices Dinacharya and Ritucharya properly, can we say that this can prevent diseases or keep people in balance with the environment and also improve the immunity and so on and so forth? Since I read your book, I have been practicing Dinacharya. I can say it has actually helped me in many dimensions along with yoga and pranayama. For me,
So I
my
think,
personal experience.
yes, which is wonderful because we are both slowly walking toward the door of being 60 years old, and it's so important. You and I are born in the same year, so it's so important that we remember that. And I think you answered your own question. Yes, if you are healthy and you follow the Dinacharya guidelines, it will prevent worse things from happening, and it will take you to a place of connectedness between your mind and body and senses and soul, that you will live happily. I think that there are many people who take the Dinacharya book, they are not well, and they start trying to force themselves to do some of the routines, and it doesn't work. If you have rheumatoid arthritis, if you're a cancer survivor, if you're not in your usual state, which is your non-pregnant state, so let's say you're 4 months pregnant, or let's say you just got over a surgery, or let's say you just finished running a marathon, or let's say you went trekking up in the mountains and you were very, very tired from it, and you come home and you say, okay, I'm going to start Dinacharya. Dinacharya requires you to already be healthy. So when you say, will it prevent disease? Yes, but that means that you don't have disease at the moment that you start doing these rituals. So the first ritual is Brahma Muhurta Uttishtet. Wake up the Brahma Muhurta, which is about 45 minutes before, it's actually 90 to 45 minutes, that period of that 48-minute muhurta before dawn. So that changes obviously through the year. If you're in December, you're going to have a very late dawn. If you're in summer, you're going to have a very early dawn. So you calculate about an hour before sunrise and you get up. Well, you can do that if you're healthy. I wake up naturally and refreshed now early. But if I'm not healthy, if I have thyroid problems or diabetes or depression or severe arthritis, then how am I going to say I'm healthy? Those people should not be getting up before dawn. Those people, if it's a chronic illness or an acute illness or a state, of life, like let's say you're over 70 years old, or let's say the state of, as I said, after surgery, you should not be trying to force yourself. You should be getting your rest. So Dinacharya has many different components, which of course you read in this ode and respect to the concepts of Dinacharya. And if you follow them, you have to know enough to modify them for your unwellness, right? I won't call it illness, but for your condition. So those are scattered through the rest of the books, like, like this big, huge book, which is what you just mentioned, the Charaka Samhita. And this is just the Chikitsa section of it. So this is the therapeutic section of it. So all of these pages will delineate that if you have this disease, part of the Chikitsa treatment is to modify your Dinacharya and do this. So for example, if you have acute food poisoning, or you wake up with indigestion and you wake up and you just feel full, bloated, maybe pain in your belly, maybe you have, the only pain that you should feel that's normal is you should have an urgency to go to the bathroom and empty your bowel. Other than that, any other pain that you could have in your upper belly, in what on the left side is called the stomach, or throughout the middle belly, around your nabhi, your intestines, or in your lower left side or lower right side, your colon. If you go and look at an anatomy book and you see where your guts are, anything along that channel that is giving you pain, and you have a feeling of not being hungry, bloated, you should lie down and go back to sleep. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what the texts say. And it also says that day in the morning, you should not brush your teeth. Why? Right? So those alterations of routine are not Dinacharya prescription.
Okay.
Alter. It's the modified for when you're not well. When you're pregnant, you should, and in fact, you should lie down and sleep until you feel the urge for food, for emptying your bowels, right? So yes, if you are healthy, then yes, you're right. It will prevent a lot of illnesses.
So that actually prompt me to ask another question. So then who can do Dinacharya? Who cannot do? You have answered. We need to modify if we are having some problems, then we should not. But in Dinacharya, the Ritucharya also, Ritucharya also includes taking Haritaki along with some adjuvants, right? So who can do Ritucharya? Who cannot do Ritucharya?
So the beauty of Ritucharya is, I had to study this because people really don't teach it very well. Ritucharya is not about seasons. The word Ritu means cycles. And in any environment, wherever you live, you're going to have cycles that go through, you can say a calendar year, that's how it's calculated. And so that year, it can start in March, it can start in April in Vaisakhi, it can start at Diwali, whatever you started, whatever your new year is in your part of the country or the world, go around 1 year, so 365 days, that is one cycle. So in that cycle, and of course there's global warming and climate change and all that, but let's say for the last 200, 500,000, 5,000 years, there's a certain cycle that happens. So at certain times of the year, it's cold, and at certain times of the year, it's hot. And if you're at the equator, you still have it, but it's slightly less noticeable. If you're up near the Arctic or the Antarctic, it's, if you're in New Zealand, it's very noticeable. It's very cold, very hot. So what's that cycle to go from hot to cold and from cold to hot? That's the first thing you have to realize. And some people have rains at different times. It doesn't happen in the order that is given in Charaka or Shushruta or Vagbata because they lived in different parts of India. Anyone who knows India knows that the climate in Chennai is very different from the climate in Kerala or Ladakh, Shimla, or Kolkata, Guwahati. They're different climates. So you have to first figure out where you are. If you say, oh, but I travel, I'm in Delhi some of the time, and I'm in Bangalore some of the time, and I'm in Trivandrum some of the time, then you have to realize that you're putting yourself out of balance because you're not in an environment in any consistent way. And that's the reality today for a lot of business people. But let's come to where you call your home. So look at that climate, weather, and cycles. So let's say we're in January during this recording, and in the northern hemisphere, we are in the coldest time of the year. This is the oldest time, and it will soon start changing because Makar Sankranti is coming, soon.
Yeah.
But right now, the days are the shortest. So the nights are the longest, and it's very cold. So your Ritucharya has to require that you know that cycle, and then you adopt what's written in the texts, and have been wrongly interpreted. So when they say Shishira, it means you can say the word winter, but it really means the coldest, the shishir, the cold time of the year, when the most contraction of your tissues happens, right? And when you have contraction of your tissues, so we'll just take the cold season right now as an example for today. You have to know what will happen to this physiology. And if you don't, you just go to the wise. And the wise men tell you that when your tissues are contracted and you've lost a lot of the oils from your body, this is it. You want to replenish your oils. This is the time that you want to not bathe in the morning where it's very cold and taking a bath will further make you cold, but rather you want to put your bucket of water, outside or in the river. It's the warmest. So you want to bathe at the 11, 12 when it's quite warm. You don't want to be bathing at 6 o'clock in the summer. Yes, you would do that. You would bathe early in the morning because it's hot. You want to get rid of the nights, sweating. But in this time, you're going to change your routine. You also want to drink warm fluids, which are clean. You also your fat. So it's this time of year that you're going to have the fattiest foods, actually. And this time of year, we have certain rituals in Bengal, such as til, which is sesame.
Yes. Yeah.
Til chikki. We have til laddu. We make jaggery, which is our nolen gur. It's our palm syrup. And it's the best, most nutritious, mineral-rich right? There's also different kinds of jaggery. Palm jaggery is what they call nolengur. And there's also coconut jaggery. There's also sugarcane jaggery, which is the traditional jaggery. Those are harvested, cooked, and added to til with your sesame oil in the seeds, and nuts, which have their own oil in them. So cashews, almonds, right? These are the delicious things. We call them the season of dry fruits and dry nuts. Why? Because they have oils in them, but you don't eat them alone. You eat them with the ghee, with the jaggery, with the oils. Those kind of snacks are there. Richer foods are there. So cooking vegetables with more, a little heaviness, right? A heavy spice, gravy, as we can call it. More rice. You may notice that you're eating more rice than usual. You may notice that you're richer dishes. Biryani is, you're having your pulao. You're having these heavier
spices.
Yes, and because your gut is hungrier, because in this cold season, the fire increases naturally. Because you're wearing warm clothes and everything is insulated, so the fire gets concentrated in the center of your body. So this is an example of the way that Ritucharya is going to guide you to change your foods. You're going to go to bed earlier. It's encouraged that you cuddle with your loved ones. So, in America, they don't believe in co-sleeping. But as children in Kolkata, you can't even think about a child sleeping alone. It's like a papa for a child alone. You sleep between your aunts and uncles and parents and sisters and brothers, and it's like a wonderful, fun thing to all sleep, like 10 people together in a bed. And the kind of rituals for the cold season are the Dinacharya for that time, which are called Ritucharya because they're for that cold season. So the food, the sleep, the exercise, go out and take a walk every day. You should in the winter, make sure you get your exercise. If it's too cold to go outside, you should be doing vyayam, exercise inside. You were mentioning that you do yoga. Yoga is not exercise. It is yoking the mind to the body and regaining that control of your mind over your body, that instinct that you have of, communicating regularly with your body. So that is all part of the Ritucharya of the cold season. I think there's many other things that we read and we know, and we just store it in our minds. And then when a patient asks us, well, what should I do about this? Then I tell them. And there's dozens and dozens of little pearls that are scattered through these textbooks that say,
exactly, yeah,
the wise points of what we should do.
And what is the role of taking Haritaki along with some adjuvant, like, for example, this is the Pouch November, December, or Jan, February, it is Magha, Falguna, or December, January, we take, the textbook says Haritaki should be taken with a dry ginger. And then the next season, Haritaki should be taken with the pipali or long pepper, because during this season kapha dosha will increase, and December January time there is pitta reduces. That is the reason the textbook Charaka Samhita advises Haritaki to be administered along with dry ginger or shonti. And the next February, March, where slight increase in the kapha dosha will happen. So that's the time the textbook advises us to consume Haritaki along with long pepper. So how do you see as a person who did an extensive research in Ayurveda, and also as a professor who teaches medicine at a medical college, what is the scientific basis of this using Haritaki? What are the benefits of taking Haritaki along with some substance as per the season?
First, we need to understand the immense gift that Haritaki is. It's called Harde. There are a lot of different words for Haritaki, but the Sanskrit name is Haritaki. The botanical name is Terminalia chebula. It is a fruit that is the gift for moving all of the things in your gut downwards in the correct direction. So that in Sanskrit is called Vata Anulomana. Anuloman means to move in the correct, downward direction. And Haritaki is not just one plant. There are 8 main species of Haritaki that exist in different parts of India, but all of them have that Vata reducing property. So in your gut, when you have very high fire, but you might have a little extra pitta left over from the last season, or a little extra vata left over from the windy season. Maybe you didn't eat properly. Maybe you'd attended too many weddings and had too much what's called ati bhojana, eating too much. That usually happens in October, November, December. And so Haritaki is given with something to increase your fire, which is the shunti, the ginger, and push everything downward so that you don't get sludge stuck in your gut, and you clean out whatever was stuck there from before. So to have that ritual that you for 3 or 4 weeks will take Haritaki with, as you mentioned, the shunti, that's a wonderful, it's a prescriptive, but it's also a preventive. So if you notice as you get older that you have a little bit more constipation than you did before. So I was not a constipation kid. I might have had it a couple of times, here and there, but my mom was excellent in making sure that we had our bowel movement every day, and we had to tell her. And at lunch or dinner, when we were in school, we'd come home and say, okay, did you have your bowel movement this morning? No, Mom, I ran off to school. Did you have it at school? No, Mom, go and sit and see. Do you need to have it? She would teach us that we should be aware of when our body wants a bowel movement. And, I did have it in the morning. I would be late for school because I was needing to go to the bathroom, but my mom would say, get up 10 minutes earlier and go, because you don't want to be last minute, right? And that's one of the ways I learned to wake up early, because when you wake up early, your body starts moving, and then when the call comes that you have to empty your bowels, you do it. So I was very lucky, and I didn't realize that everyone didn't have this till I got older. And then as a doctor, I started listening to people talking about how they poop regularly, but regular means every Thursday. So they're pooping once a week. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Yes. And I would be shocked listening to this, but this was the reality. And so as you get older, there is also a tendency to become more constipated because the vata increases in the body. And so for people who are a little bit constipated, to notice that in November, when they start eating heavier foods, they're not going as regularly. Oh, Haritaki is such a great helper, a real friend. And the ginger increases the fire just a little bit, and then everything that needs to kind of burn out, the agni, increases, so it transforms it and consumes all of the undigested stuff that's maybe sitting around in the gut. That is a very wonderful thing to do. Now you move a couple of months later, and as you said, you add, instead of the ginger, you add pipali, which is long pepper. So ginger is very good for increasing the fire. It's good for digesting out all the stuff that's stuck there. But by the middle of the winter, your fire is pretty high because you're wearing, warm clothes. You're probably not exercising as much as you will the transition months of fall and spring, and you have been eating those heavy foods. And so pipali is one of the world's best. What's the word? In America, we'll call it a roto-rooter. It's like a machine that cleans out the drain and all the stuff on the side of the drain. So it's like it penetrates, right? So in Sanskrit, we say tikshna. It's very sharp and penetrating. And if you add pipali to your haritaki, then it will not only move things downward, but it will also clean and kind of scrape and sharply change. But it's not so, of course, you shouldn't have it every day, and pipali is one of those things that's dangerous if you have it all the time. But for a couple of weeks, if you have a little bit with haritaki, it's actually very good for cleaning out the gut. And in those months before the summer starts, when you're in like late winter, early spring, it's very, very good to get rid of all that stuff. So and that's
when, when the late winter, again we take haritaki with madhu or honey, right? Because kapha balance, severe kapha increase will be there in the late winter. Then to balance that kapha, haritaki can be taken along with the honey.
And the three substances for vata, pitta, kapha, as you just mentioned, the best one for kapha is honey. The best one for pitta is ghee, and the best one for vata is telam, sesame oil. So these are usually the adjuvants or the assistants in any formulation that you give. If you want to make the dosha of a particular person shift just a little bit more, then instead of giving gugulu in oil, they'll give it with ghee. Or a really good formulation for lowering cholesterol is Triphala gugulu. So Triphala it's got the haritaki, but it's also got amalaki and bibitaki. Why? Because amalaki is very good as a superfood, but also for reducing pitta. The bibitaki is for the kapha, the haritaki is for the vata. So you've got three balanced, but then you take gugulu and it'll do scraping. It's a very good residue scraping, and it will scrape out that residue in your vessels, which we in modern day molecular, we call it cholesterol. And then you have Triphala gugulu, but Triphala gugulu has to be activated, which many people don't know. So, especially in a person who has high cholesterol, they usually have a problem with their pitta. They usually have a lot of extra pitta. What's the extra pitta, the substance? Ghee. So you take your Triphala gugulu tablet. I usually tell people take a separate glass jar and put ghee in it. You take, let's say, 4 or 5 tablets of the Triphala gugulu. You put it into the ghee. And then just before taking it, you take a spoon and pull out the 1 or 2 tablets that you're going to take. And you have that Triphala gugulu with the ghee that's kind of coated around it. And it just works very well. But it has to be that cultured ghee. And it has to be a good formulation of actual haritaki and actual Triphala gugulu.
Yeah. So getting actual medicines, Ayurvedic medicines are is a challenge these days.
It's a challenge these days because people are ignorant. You have people who are pharmacists who know nothing about Ayurveda. trying to, this is the problem with modern medicine people. They're over-smarted and they think that they can just substitute an extract. You take a supercritical carbon dioxide or a petroleum ether extract or a methanol extract of some herb, and you say, see, this has the highest amount of this chemical, which is found in that chemical, I mean like a molecule found in that herb. So that's the best, that's the active ingredient. I just met with a patient who was saying, well, this is the molecule that's supposed to be in this particular, this herb. And this particular bottle doesn't even list that chemical. That means this is a bad formulation. And I said, well, it's not the chemical that's making the formulation work. It's the whole, herb. She was learning that it has to be the chemical. So when you have pharmacists working with extract, and also now, a lot of the Vaidyas, when I hate to call them Vaidyas because they don't have Vidya, many of them. But that's the term we're using for Ayurvedic doctors. And when they read the Shastras, get their degree, but then they fail to practice true Ayurveda, and what they're doing is just practicing this allopathic version of it. Instead of using a statin drug, they just use Trifla Guglu. Instead of using this painkiller, they use Nirgundi oil, or they use, some Ayurvedic pain thing. Instead of using this cream, they use 777 oil, which is, for skin disease. So they think it's a substitute, and it's not really a direct substitute. You really have to be thinking about the doshas, because a person with psoriasis can have more of a vata psoriasis with some, some weeping and some kapha in there. Like kapha means more watery psoriasis, or you can have a very hot, inflamed pitta kind of psoriasis, and they're very different. And if you don't understand and you don't read and understand it, thinking about the doshas, but you just read and think about it as in a substitute for Ayurvedic pharmaceutical, you'll get a certain amount of success, but you won't really be able to help patients because you're not following the doshas. Doshas are so elegant. They're so elegant for understanding. There is the practical part where you can say, oh, I can take Haritaki and I know this does this. But that's for 60, 70% of, for Haritaki because it's such a great drug. But to get to that other 30, 35%, there are people that actually use Haritaki. They're very famous in Kerala and in parts of UP where they absolutely understand the different species of Haritaki and how to preparation. And they can make 100 or 1,000 different medicines with Haritaki. So sometimes I ask my students of Ayurveda, what are 5 formulations that have Haritaki in it? And they can't say Trifala right away. There's a problem, right? They don't know. Eranda Haritaki, Eranda is castor oil with Haritaki, people who are constipated. So there are a lot of different formulations, and people just don't, know about them, but allopaths don't know about them. And this speaks to what you were just saying, that we don't know where to get medicines. We don't know. And there's so many people now on this planet that they're destroying the environment. So the places where Haritaki grow, or the huge amla trees, or the beautiful coconut trees, they're gone. So I don't encourage people to use Ayurveda. If they're telling me, prove it to me, I say, I don't want to prove it to you, Baba. Go and do your allopathy. I say, why? I said, because not everyone deserves Ayurveda. If you don't already believe in Ayurveda, go and use allopathy. Go and have your side effects, go and do what you need to do. If you feel like that's better medicine, go and do that. I was just with one of he's a very talented eye doctor. He's an ophthalmologist surgeon. Surgeon. And we were talking, and obviously he's MBBS. And I said, what do you do right now? So I was sitting and watching, seeing patients with him on when I was in Banaras. And every third patient was coming in with dry eyes. Oh, doctor, what should I do? And he would give them drops, and these drops are like 400 rupees for a little bottle because it's a sterile, liquid. Most of them had either steroids or antibiotics or some kind of like hyaluronic acid, something that's a chemical. And I said to him, have you ever tried using ghee? I said, how can you say that? I said, well, because it works. And he said, well, I do have many pages, especially in Banaras, because Banaras people use things that have been used for, generations. And there's a whole reputation of being very bunyadi, what will I say, traditional, right? Tradition based. So they will use ghee and they will see that it works. And so he said, the problem is we can't recommend ghee for two reasons. One is, even if we know that it works, I said, are you admitting that it works? He said, even if it works, we cannot find it in a
pure form.
Huh?
Pure form. Pure form of ghee.
That's the second thing. Yeah, that's the second. The first one is we don't have studies that prove that it works, so we can't recommend it. And allopathic doctors have to have, things that are standard of care. But the second is, how do I know it's pure? And I said, well, because you didn't learn, so you don't know. But you know that it's cultured ghee. It has to be in a glass, not a plastic vessel. You have to make it properly, right? And you have to keep it. And it's more medicinal after a year if you haven't contaminated the jar. It's more medicinal. So for the eyes, we don't use the most medicinal one that we would use on the skin or take, into our rectum or eat as part of a medicine. We would take the cultured ghee and put it in a separate glass jar and just take a dropper, or best is clean hand, put it into the jar and then just open the eye, the bottom of the eye, and just put it right underneath, and then blink the eye until it's all over. And that is the best. I get all these people sending me beauty products of Ayurveda because I've got a new brand, and I don't trust any of them because I look at the labels and they all have the same stuff. And then like 1% will be, some tulsi or ginger or turmeric or some herb, and they'll say it's Ayurvedic, but 99% is all that chemical. I use ghee, and I use ghee, and by my bed, I have a pot, a little jar of ghee. And every night before bed, a part of my ritual is I just put it on my eyes, and if my face feels dry somewhere, especially in the winter, it's rare in the summer, but in the winter sometimes I'll feel it, and I'll just take some of the ghee and I'll just put it all over, take some and put it here. Oh, I'm cooking and, it's on the side of the bottle, I'll just take it off the side of the bottle and put it on my elbow, put it on my wrist. Ghee doesn't get wasted in this house. And I find that is the best beauty treatment, right? So on the eyes, if eyes get dry, you and I are spending time reading. When you review a paper, it's 3 hours in front of the computer, right? So we're spending a lot of time on the phone, on the computer. Maybe we're watching videos, attending meetings. So right now at Cornell, we have our grand rounds and our seminars available still online because doctors say, it's so nice to just go into your office and sit on the computer rather than going into the hall. So, well, I mean, there is a value for being together physically, but if you're doing it online, that's 1 more hour you're online. So I come home that night and I check my eyes, and if they feel a little bit dry, or if I'm going to go out for a walk and it's cold outside, I just put ghee on my eyes. So one of the things that's happened is my whole eye makeup, when I was younger, I was taught that putting, all the women, they put kajal, and then there's the eyeshadow and mascara, and I don't know, all these products. I don't use, I think I have one little thing of eyeshadow, and I think I keep a tube of mascara just because I might have to go somewhere. But I don't use those. I think once in 6 months I'll touch them. I use a little bit of kajal mainly because of the idea that it's good for our eyes to have that protection, right, of the kajal. And that's it. And so at night, I just put ghee on. So ghee is a precious thing, but you have to know where you get it. It has to be made from cow. It has to be cultured, and preferably it's cows that are treated well. And I just made a checklist. We're going to publish that. It's a checklist of everything that you should know when you evaluate your ghee. And most people in allopathy have no clue about this kind of wisdom at all.
So I think we have only 6 minutes. I want to ask about Panchakarma treatment. I see you have gone to India, you came to India, gone through Panchakarma, and you are looking maybe 10 or 15 years younger than what exactly your age is. So, Panchakarma, for whom they should prefer Panchakarma, who should go, who should not go, and what is Panchakarma?
So Pancha means five,
Mhm.
right? Just like Punjab, Pancha means five. The five rivers is Punjab. Pancha Karma is the five karmas, actions. And those are five cleansing actions. And Panchakarma is a system of cleaning. It's a series of procedures that will take the body and open it up, make it a little weak and vulnerable by opening it up. But by opening it, you can get into the crevices and clean out the things that are stuck there, either residues, undigested, products, maybe cellular. So we're talking biochemistry now. Cellular products like lactic acid that are stuck in the tissues, or in Ayurveda, we call it ama, but it's undigested food stuff. It's stuff that's come into the body, metabolism product, and just not made its way out. So that's Panchakarma. Now, Panchakarma is generally put into four categories. One is the planning stage, which is pre-Panchakarma, pre-Purva Karma. Then is the first part of it, which is preparation. So that's called Purva Karma. The main Panchakarma, which is called Pradhana Karma, and then the after part, which is called Paschat Karma. And so there are some rules that are used, and the rules are used because someone tried it, they tweaked it, they titrated it, and they found that this is what worked, and they said, okay, do it this way. And people that use Panchakarma, they vary slightly depending on where they are in the world, in the country, and they find that it works for them. So generally, the first time you have Panchakarma, you cannot go less than 3 weeks because it takes time to open up the body.
What do you mean by opening up the body?
So it means opening up the tissues. So for example, my tissues are contracted like this, and I want to get to the damage in, let's say, my rotator cuff because I had an injury. All that scar tissue is there. Modern medicine teaches us that scar tissue is permanent, and that you're going to have pain for the rest of your life. You're going to have a disabled, not fully rotational shoulder. We'll use the shoulder as an example. So that's what you learn, and then you just continue, and that scar tissue just stays there. The pain is there, the restriction is there. Ayurveda will go in, they'll start out by putting oil on the shoulder, but it will also feed you oil. So this is called Sana, where you drink, you start with a little bit of oil, maybe, well, usually you can tell from the patient if you're experienced, but if you're doing it on your own, you start with just 1 teaspoon. People who can't stand ghee, I start them with 2 drops. And one of my friends does this. He starts with 2 drops, then 3 drops, then 4 drops, each day increasing just 1, maybe half a drop, maybe 1 drop, until the person can tolerate a teaspoon. Then you go from a teaspoon slowly up to 2 teaspoons. This can take months, but you don't have to go to a Panchakarma center with an expert. You can do this yourself because it's very, very slow. If you go to a Panchakarma center where you have a real master, and I mean real, not some of these, graduates.
Business people.
Business people, exactly. You are so correct. And there are a lot of business people who have the money, but they have no sense of this. They figure they can just hire someone. And when you hire someone, you will never get a true expert unless the person is doing it because they want to and not because of the money. You know what I'm saying? It's the same in medicine. If the guy needs your money to do the operation, he's not a good surgeon. If he doesn't need the money, and he's doing it because it's either an intellectual challenge or because he's very compassionate, and then he takes the money because it's part of the materials he needs to purchase and people he needs help with, that's a better surgeon. Okay, so let's say you go into a center, they'll start you, they'll look at your body, they'll take your pulse, they'll look at your tongue, they'll say, okay, we can start you with 3 teaspoons. This morning you're going to have 3 teaspoons of ghee. So you have it in the morning, early morning, let's say 6, 7 o'clock, and then you wait for 4 hours and you see how hungry the person is at 10. If the person says, so hungry. That means they digested the ghee. That means the ghee went into the body and was fine. The body was able to digest it. If they say, no, I'm not hungry, you wait 2 more hours, it's 12 o'clock, they're still not hungry. That means there's a problem in the body that they can't digest the ghee. Ghee is structurally the closest to our lipid bilayers of anything. That's why our body, even pure ghee, right? So the whole discussion on pure ghee. Now you take that ghee the first day, and after it, you don't want to give them like a chicken sandwich or khichdi. What you want to give them is something very easy to digest. So we have pana bhat or bhate bhat, right? So you take rice that's broken. You don't take long rice. You take rice that's broken or very small rice. You boil it. So usually for us who cook, we have 1 container of rice and then 1 3/4 of that same container of water, right? So if it's a cup, then it's like 1 3/4 cups of water. Or if it's 2 big, dabba, then it's that dabba and almost twice of that of water. Okay, you start cooking it, but then you add in 4 times more water. So it becomes very, very gila, very warm.
Kanji kind of thing.
Exactly. So that bhate bhat is kanji. And when you have kanji, the best you can do is use red rice, which is broken. And you can actually buy broken red rice. For people who know, you can go to the rice cellar, not in a plastic bag, but it's in those big barrels, and they will give you, you want, tuta, how would I say it? Broken rice. So you have that, and you have a big bowl of that. And if you're still hungry, you have another half bowl of that. And on the side, you have 1 small vegetable, no meat, no egg, no. And you have that for lunch, you have that for dinner, and then you do it again the next day. And when you go to a Panchakarma center, you're going to do this for 5 to 7 days, and that's going to prepare the Agni. You're building the Agni in your body. And that oil goes right into your and on the side, you're getting an oil treatment. The real Ayurvedic people will give you the oil treatment, and then they will let you sit. Maybe they'll let you sweat if you are very strong, but usually they don't make you sweat. They'll just let you sit, and they will have you bathe. And then after some time, depending on the season, they'll have you just bathe with water, not with soap and all that. So you'll have this sheen of oil on your body. And you'll do this for 2 days. That is the Purva Karma. That's called Snehana. If they overweight, and if you have a lot of excess skin, like let's say you have psoriasis or eczema, they will have you sweat as well. So I used to be put into the sweat chamber when I was younger and more heavy. Now, by doing Panchakarma every year, I naturally lose 2 to 3 kilos without any effort. And then I'll maintain. I don't really gain. Maybe I'll gain 1 kilo, but usually I'll just stay right at the same weight. And then I go back the next year. So I have slowly reduced. So I'm no longer, really obese, and I'm still overweight, but I'm not super overweight. Yeah. Definitely, more healthy. I can feel my legs are skinnier, stronger. There's more muscle to them. So once you do that Snehana and Swedana, that's your Purva Karma. Now you go into your actual Panchakarma, which is either you will be having a lot of kapha. This is people who have any disease above the gram. It can be heart disease. It can be chronic lung disease, like interstitial lung disease. It can be chronic bronchitis. It can be anything in the head and neck. It can even be mental illness. It can be sinusitis. It can be neurologic problems. And it's amazing to me. And you can't just do this. You have to really be trained. But this is therapeutically pulling that kapha out through what looks like vomiting, but it's not actually vomiting. It's called vamana, but it's not like to vomit. It is therapeutically giving you medicine to pull all that stuff together into your stomach and then pull it out.
Vomiting it out, yeah.
Yeah, so when you vomit it out from your stomach, through guidance, it's actually a life-threatening procedure. You cannot just just do it. You have to have someone watching you, and it can be very scary. I have watched this procedure. It's very scary for a few hours because the person can get very sick and they continue vomiting and then they'll die. So it's this is a medical procedure. So the doctors that know how to do this, it's actually illegal to do unless you are an actual Ayurvedic experienced Panchakarma doctor. So they'll do this, and within 2 days, that particular condition will either start to decrease or be gone, like epilepsy. You're getting epileptic. They do this Panchakarma, and then suddenly the epilepsy is gone for some time. You don't know that it's gone until some time passes, and then you say, "Oh, I haven't had an epileptic episode in, epilepsy we call as seizures in common language. I haven't had a seizure in so many days," and then it becomes weeks, and then it becomes months, and that's when they realize the Panchakarma worked. So these kind of extreme, you can say, I don't want to say cure, but changes that lead to what is a curative condition are so special. And every doctor that does it, we always feel blessed that time, space, and all the factors of the universe came together to help this work for the patient, because there's a lot of danger that has to be passed through. The second procedure, laxative of passing out a lot of poop. So when I had this a few years ago, it's usually done for pitta that's stuck in the gut. I think I went 13 times, and I was exhausted of the day. Yeah, and you can die from it. So the doctors are very, very experienced, who know exactly what to do, and they know how to stop the diarrhea. And at the very end of it, they will give a bowl of kanji. And it's made in a special way with a couple of herbs and special clean water, so that it will stop. Like, you can't use RO water for these kind of things, because RO water is imbalanced, right? It's not pure water. It's not crystallized the way that pure water is. It's purified, chemically, artificially purified. Any water engineer in science can tell you that RO water is one of the worst things that man has invented. So Virechana is the word. So Rechan is to purge out. So Virechana uses your Haritaki and sometimes other chemicals. And the person will get rid of the pitta. Their acid reflux will be gone. We can get rid of colitis. We can get rid of ulcerative, conditions in the gut. We see all kind of food allergy changes after Virechana. And the key is actually the next part, which is the Panchakarma, what you do in the after part. But we'll get to that. The third procedure is Basti, where you put therapeutic alternating with cleansing liquids into the rectum. So this has to be done by a doctor, and if you put in a certain amount, you have to know how much to put in, and you have to know what to put in. So one day you'll put in something cleansing, and one day you'll put in something that's nourishing. Cleansing, nourishing, cleansing, nourishing. Hydrotherapy just uses water, which is very drying. You know that water is drying because you can see the sides of a river and how it carves out the rock, or a dripping faucet and how koi, how do you say koi? It chafes away the porcelain of the ceramic. So water is very drying. So you want to use oil alternating with some kind of decoction that the plant, medicinal decoction, and then again the oil, again the decoction. So this kind of a procedure is called Basti, because there's a that is then squeezed into the rectum and allowed. The person lies down, and sometimes they can hold that oil in their gut for a long time, and it just nourishes. In fact, this process is what will heal the gut. The ghee that is given on that second, the every other day, will heal the colon, will heal the scars, will heal. I just had a patient last year who has had hemorrhoids for 25 years, which we call arsha, or in Latin we call piles. Very severe, bleeding every time she would poop, and embarrassed about it, and little pieces of her intestine would come out, from exit. That's piles. And she was told it was impossible. I said, well, let's try Panchakarma. So she did Panchakarma, and she was like, well, it's not going to work. I just know it's not going to work. I said, well, why do you know? I said, because this has been here, and I talked to the doctor, and the doctor, the gastroenterologist, said it's not going to work. So she did it. She did do the procedure, and then she was given this Paschatkarma, the after part of it. Just in December last month, she called me and said, I have to tell you something. And she was almost crying. She said, I went to the doctor, the same doctor, and she's in Europe where they have national insurance, so they have to wait for the appointment. So she had finished the Panchakarma in March, and she had March, and she had done the Paschatkarma for 2 months after that. So by May, and fine, but she couldn't get an appointment. So her appointment was, 6 months later in December. And she called and she said he went in with a colonoscope and he looked and went all the way up to the what's called the splenic flexure, all the way up, and said, I can't find a single polyp, a single hemorrhoid, a single problem.
Oh, wonderful.
And she was like, oh, Hare Ram, Ram. She's actually not Indian origin, but she's Indian hearted. And she was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I didn't think this would work. So when she told her friends, some of them said, oh, I didn't even know you had him. But the other ones, so shocked, they said, I want to go. I want to see this. So that's the third one, Basti. The fourth one is for skin and certain problems of the blood. It's called Rakta Mokshana, and it uses leeches.
Leeches, yeah.
Yeah, and that has been used for thousands of years because leeches will cut on a micro level very clean and the skin will grow back. So for psoriasis, for wounds that won't heal, for gout is uric acid that's in the blood. These are very, very, very good treatments. And then the last one is for the upper part of the body, not just the vamana, but for anything of the collarbones. Certain medicinal things, liquids put into the nose.
Nasya.
So these are the five. Vamana, Virechana, Basti, Rakta Mokshana, Nasya. So these are the five of the Pradhana Karma. And then those are the five Panchakarma. And then there's the Paschat. So if the first time you do Panchakarma is 3 weeks, let's say, 21 days, then you should do double that. So 42 days. So that's 6 weeks Paschat Karma. That means you should have the foods that are, you can't just go back and have your chicken biryani with wine or, but every day I like to have my, fish curry. No, every day I like to have my very like gunpowder idli and sambar. You have to eat more kanji, more lentil upma, more kada and not these juices and Coca-Cola and all these other like artificial drinks. You have to boil your water. You have to use a lot of things which are not convenient for every day. And people fail because their Paschat Karma is not good. You have to sleep early. You have to make sure that you take care of yourself and oil your body before showering. So there's a lot of rituals. So people say, oh, it's too tough for me. Yeah, because you're not worshiping. When you do puja and you clean the altar and you get everything ready, there's a whole process of getting ready. You don't just take your altar and just throw food on the altar, right? You have to get everything ready because of the fire that you light, that deep that you light at your altar, is your own body. You're taking care of, right? Your own spiritual self. So if you don't want to do that in your life, in your home, in your kitchen, in your food and your sleep and your self-care, then you're not worshiping the temple of your body. And so you're not really doing, self-care, Dinacharya. So Panchakarma requires that. But if you can get through the Paschat Karma, then you will probably notice that even after that 6 weeks or whatever is gone, so you did a prep time, you did the whole 3 weeks, you came out, so you've just spent, 3 months of your year in that process of going into it, going through it, and then coming out of it. And after 3 months, you should notice that you naturally have changed your kitchen. You've put things in a certain way, you've stopped buying certain things. Your ingredients are different. You are not having so much of processed foods. You're noticing that you have over from your packet milk. You found a goshala and the guy is bringing you milk, which means you have a glass jar or a dabba, one of those
steel can.
For the vardhan, the dudh ka vardhan. And you have a separate pan that you always boil your milk in. which you never had before, but now you have a separate pan for your share of the 1 liter of milk that you get. And you will notice that you are cooking on wooden things and not plastic or silicone. You'll notice that you've invested in brass and in there's no more of that non-stick stuff. And those kind of changes really mean that you're learning that you have to worship
how to live a good life using Ayurveda. Ayurvedic knowledge.
First, the awareness is first. I think opening up your mind, like in the beginning, we were saying you choose to have an organic lifestyle. You know, if you choose the way that you're going to make every step consciously, that's the first step of living a good lifestyle. Yeah. Did you choose your job? Maybe not. Maybe you got a job somewhere, but you hate your job. So either you have to change your mind to say, I'm going to find something in this job that I love, or you shift your job. If you're a butcher and your job is to cut meat, and that is what you do every day, you're taking carcasses of meat and cutting them and selling them, but there's a part of you that says, I don't want to do this. I know it's good money. I know it's my, family tradition. I know this. I won't think about it. But it's bothering you. Then you've got to do a profession. So maybe you go to becoming the manager in the books of that, your dad's business, but you aren't yourself cutting the meat. Or maybe you become the truck driver that moves the supplies from the butchers to whoever you're selling it to, but you're not cutting meat. You make small changes, right? I'm using a very simple example because people have professions that they are stuck in and they're spending 8 hours a day and they're not happy with it. So becoming happy, either choosing I'll stay here and be happy or I'll make slight shifts and get out, that is one of the most empowering things that is going to help you live a happy life, live a good life. And once the brain is set, then you start changing things in your home slowly.
Exactly.
So choosing to sleep on a gadi, which is hard, versus a polyester status, bed mattress. I have never owned a mattress since I, was maybe 15 years old. I have always slept on cotton gadi, which in English is called, what's it called? It's called a cotton mattress, but in Japanese it's called a futon. And it's just cotton put together with either wool around it or cotton batting around it and then tied with a cotton thread. And then you put cotton sheets on it. Sleeping on organic fibers for a third of your life, 8 hours a day, is so important. Choosing, like we were talking about makeup earlier, or choosing certain rituals, like I comb my hair and my scalp gets stimulation every day. There are people that don't even comb their scalp every day. That is help new hair grow in, and that, even if you're not so vain, like people will notice you if you start going bald. Having, the choice not to use artificial products in your bathroom. So shampoos, soaps, all the things which maybe you were brought up with, slowly choosing. So there's a great soap here from an Indian woman in New Jersey called Pure Mitti. So she talks about mitti, of the earth, and she hand makes these soaps. And she hand makes dishwashing liquid. And choosing that that's the soap I'm going to have in my bathroom versus my
chemical soap. Chemical soap.
Yeah, chemical soap, which is 80% lye. Do I not have any? There are times when I do very oily work, or I'll get my hands dirty on like automobile grease or something, and I need something. You know what's the best thing to use? Chai. Chai is ashes from wood, or charcoal, right? Wood. This is what my grandmother would use to clean out her vessels after she cooked. So if you learn those things and you learn to make those a priority, there are so many things like lemon juice, baking soda. These are natural cleansers. Or your grandmother used, my grandmother used. Why do we need to go and buy a bottle of Harpics, right? So coconut hair, around the brown coconut, that fiber. those coconut hairs are among the best for scrubbing. So
Yes.
going back to that is also respecting the environment, but there are also choices for the way we live. So people think, oh, you're a weird doctor. You're not like, you don't do the status things. I say, okay, I don't. But when they start learning that now in America, the best living, these 25, 35-year-old young adults, when they get out of college, they are choosing, I don't want to live like my parents lived. I want to have an electric car, or I want to use a bicycle. Now the bicycle thing is such a big deal. People are going in bicycles, or at least if they're going long distances, they're saying, I'm going to have a two-wheeler, and they buy a scooty instead of riding in a car, because it's not only less physical, it's more environmentally conscious. Yeah, it's not always possible. Yeah, it's not always possible, but in the places where you can do it, and you do it, these are choices that people are making. And those choices will change your life slowly. They'll change your friends slowly, because some friends will say, I don't want to be around you because you're dressing differently, you're acting differently. Why aren't you using those? I used to use those sticky bindis, and now, like you, I just use either turmeric or kumkum or vibhuti or something. And people say, it's messy. Why don't you use the little sticky ones? I say, well, I don't really want that plastic sticky stuff on my...
Exactly, yeah.
It's not good for my Agnya chakra to have that. So these are little choices I make that people feel are weird. I will go to a restaurant and have hot water instead of having, Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
If they need to have something, I'll have jeera jal, or I'll have a lemon, fresh lime soda or something. But they find it unusual, and then they watch me, and then they ask questions, and then they convert. And so
exactly, that is the way you are actually. It's not that being doctors we are not just advising, but we are also practicing the same thing and walking the path what you preach. That's really wonderful.
And you are inspiring people. People listen to your podcast and they think about it, and then they say, oh, Dr. Roy is doing it. She's an educated woman. She knows, and she's still choosing these things. That means it's not because she's some backwards thinking person. It's because she really understands there must be some value to this. Chalo, let me learn more about why she made these choices. And then they slowly convert. And everyone I've met that makes these conscious conversions is a happier person. Why? Because they're more conscious in their living. They're more connected to the earth. I gave a 70-year-old man, he has cancer, his wife also. They have an apartment, but then outside the city, they have a bungalow, small bungalow, but in the back, there's some land. And I said, is it actual like grass? She says, yeah, it's just grass and it's a lawn. I said, here's your homework. Go and buy a tent for camping. Put it outside and put just some cotton blankets down and sleep on that at least one night a week. She said, what are you saying? I said, don't sleep in the bedroom of the bungalow. Sleep outside in, the summer months or the spring months when it's possible. And the tent has a netting around it, so there's no issue of mosquitoes or things. She slept there. She said, you know what? My husband and I are like teenagers. I said, what do you mean? She said, we're going outside and camping every night, and people are asking us, what are you doing? She said, is it true? I can feel like this pulsing or this wave of energy on the earth. Anyone that sleeps on the earth, including people in slums in the countryside, they will tell you and feel the pulsing of the earth. And now the scientists, the geologists have talked about this, this dronal rhythm that is there on the earth. And when we align with that, it just scientifically makes sense that will be part of our healing, right? The connection. So these little things that seem like fun rituals, they change people. And this couple was completely changed just by sleeping outside, and he's doing very well. He's doing very well. So what the happy life is. He's going to die one day, just like all of us are, but most of us are. But he is living right now. He's not dying with cancer, he's living.
Yeah,
And
that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think that kind of an inspiration is what Dinacharya is really about. It's the real sense of having routines that help us live more fully. Yes.
So this is really wonderful, Dr. Bhattacharya. I'm inspired, and I haven't even completed a quarter of my questions. But this has been so insightful. And if God permits and if your time permits, maybe we can do one more podcast in the future. But for now, thanks a lot from the bottom of my heart, and namaste.
Namaste
Thank you.
to you. Thank you for inviting me. Namaste.
Thanks a lot.